Today's video is going to be about coding the car to have the power mirrors, the side view mirrors, fold automatically when you lock the car. I'm going to lock it right now. As you can see, nothing happens. I have comfort access on this car, so if I were to put my hand here, it automatically unlocks and it automatically locks. And I'll show both in frame here, so nothing happening. And you can hold, so basically after you code your side view mirrors to fold, by default from the factory, you got to hold this down if you have comfort access for 2.5 seconds, or you hold your lock button down for 2.5 seconds. And as you can see, not active on this car. Now there's a couple ways to go about it. Base coding is just to actually go into your NFRM, your footwell module, same module that controls your lights and whatnot. I've actually been in there before to turn my angel eyes on by default to increase their brightness and various other functions. But I never went in and actually coded the mirrors to fold. And I didn't like the idea of sitting here. You know, obviously if you have comfort access, you're probably never going to touch your remote, right? I even have a silicone cover on this because it just never goes inside the dash. You replace the battery in this and just keep it in your pocket at all times. So obviously I'm not going to be using that to hold the lock button down to actually lock the mirror. So I'd be standing here. Once you get out of the car, I'm all about just tap it once and leave, walk away, right? I don't want to be standing here for 2.5 seconds. It doesn't sound like much, but every single time that can get annoying. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I never even bothered to code it all this time, because I wasn't a fan of how long you have to sit there and hold it. I've seen it done on a few cars, even my buddy's M4. He had an X3 before that, and it was cool. It had comfort access, but you still had to stand there for a couple seconds. It just makes it awkward. You can't just get out of your car and take off. You're going to have to remember, oh yeah, if I want my mirrors folded, I better tap on that for 2.5 seconds, or hold the remote for 2.5 seconds. So, but what I researched, or what I found out, was that you can actually code it through custom coding. The same way I went into my footwell module and I changed the nettodat.trc file to increase the brightness going to the angel eyes to get them to be a little bit brighter and a little more voltage to them. The same thing can be done with the timing of how long you need to press this. You can make it instantaneous, you can make it 1/2 second, 1.5 seconds, 2.5 seconds. So I'm going to show you how to, first of all, if all you're after is to just fold your mirrors, then I'll show you the first step, and then I'm going to show you how to modify your trace file to reduce the time frame. So I'll start by just doing base coding, or at least show you how to do it base. If you've done any type of custom data in your trace file, be aware that you can no longer just do basic coding. You have to always modify the trace file. I have NCS dummy on my car, on my laptop, so I'm going to use that, but I'll also just show you the basic way to do it if you want to do that and you're not so concerned with the timing. I looked on YouTube and I was actually surprised. I figured maybe I'd be throwing up a video on how to play with the timing, how long you need to press the button, but I actually found that there's no videos. You just got like tons of people putting up a 1-minute clip showing you how it works if you've coded, but not how to actually code. Kind of seems to be the case for a lot of different things you can do. There's people demonstrating it, which doesn't really help you, right? So I'm going to show you how to actually do it from scratch, including just base coding on the actual mirrors to fold, and then we'll play with the trace file to reduce the time frame you need to press your comfort access ridges here or hold your remote. Yeah, so we'll get the laptop set up on the car and go from there. One thing I always recommend is have a decent battery charger just before anything. You don't want to brick any of your modules, so make sure you set the car up on a battery charger. So I'll start with that. Alright, so in terms of battery chargers, I haven't covered this in the past, but I figured it could be relevant for people that are unsure as to what type of battery charger would be good. I have 3 battery chargers in my house. One's a trickle charger that I use just to keep my M3 battery topped up. It's good if you let your car sit for a long time. And if you go out and buy a really good battery charger, they're great. They don't let the battery get overcharged. They're intelligent. You can set them at different, like for instance this one down here, you can set it at different levels. You can set it at 2 amps, 6 amps. But if you're coding and you're trying to actually write to one of your modules, what happens is you got to have your key in the on position. Therefore, there's a lot of demand on the actual battery at that time, and it wouldn't take very long, maybe 10-15 minutes. You'll start to drop voltage, and if you get under in the low 11s in terms of your floating battery voltage, you can actually brick one of your modules when you're writing to it. So either make sure you have a really good topped up battery, or you've driven it recently and it's gonna last a good 15-20 minutes before it starts to deplete, or make sure you get a basic battery charger. So for instance, I could connect this on the car, set it at 2 amps. Let's just say that I let my battery run low and I want to just plug it in, walk away, come back after a couple hours after it brings the battery charge back up before starting. That works great, but it's restricted to 6 amps just because of regulations, and technology's moved on with battery chargers. So maybe even if you get one of those jumper packs and stick it on, that wouldn't be a bad idea. And they even come in lithium nowadays. They're cheap enough. But if you want to use a dedicated battery charger, then buying one of these more sophisticated ones actually doesn't work out. As you can see, the actual gauge of the wiring is much better. It's restricted to 6 amps. So if you set it on and flick that switch to 6 amps, when you have the key in the on position, it's just going to actually overload the charger, and it's going to keep cutting out, and it's not going to do you any good for keeping the battery topped up. So it's a good charger, but it won't work in this instance. So I'm not going to use it. And I actually have an old school one here. It looks like it's an antique. These brands are Canadian, actually. I'm from Canada originally, and these chargers are from a company called Canadian Tire, which is like similar to your, it's not really similar to anything here, funny enough, but it's like a big automotive store. And this is an old school one. Very old, skinny wires, no sophistication, no brain on it. The only thing it has is if you accidentally reverse the polarity, it will protect what you've connected, so you don't short it out. You can change it between 6 and 12 volts, but if you put your probes on there and you're running even up to 15 amps, it will run. It will actually support that. That's not the limit of an actual receptacle, a wall receptacle, but it actually will run. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to set up the probes on the car, and if I want to code, it may overload a bit and go over to 15 amps and click off and on, but that's fine. It's still majority of the time bringing the battery voltage up, and it'll allow you to code for an hour if you needed to. So just be conscious of that. Either get a really basic, not very sophisticated battery charger, or look for one at least 10 amps, because you're not going to be able to maintain your battery voltage. So on this car, I guess this is just basic stuff, but I figured I'd cover it here just in case someone's just approaching this from scratch. So you're going to want to make sure that you connect your negative battery terminal off of your battery charger right here. That is your negative charge point. Positive is underneath this cap here. And it actually fits on there nice. And if I were to plug it in, you'll see it spikes. Just looking at the actual display here. As soon as I plug it in, it's going to spike. Because by default, these cars are going to naturally want to suck the modules. Like right now, the car isn't sleeping, so the load is actually pretty good. Even though I just drove the car maybe an hour ago, ran some errands, it still likes to demand over 10 amps. And once that thing starts to get a little bit warm, it may actually go above 15 and click on and off every 30 seconds to a minute, which is not ideal for flashing your car, but it's never been a problem for me. As long as you make sure that your battery voltage is like over 11.5, you can write to the modules. You're not going to brick anything. But you know what's a good idea is I actually set the battery charger up on the actual car and allow it to just give the whole system a bit of a top up, and you'll hear the charger start to settle out as it tops everything up, and then you know you'll be floating really good when you're ready to write. So I like to set that up, and then I go over to my laptop, get it all booted up, get the cables connected. By the time I'm ready to code, this thing's topped everything up and I got lots of time to work with. So I figured I'd cover that just really briefly here, just so that if you guys are concerned about, well, fine, I'm new to coding and I'd really like to have something as basic as folding mirrors. It's probably one of the most common things people code, and it's one of the first things people code. I've never done it actually, and I've had this car for a long time, you know, getting on a couple of years, but you know, be conscious of that. Battery charger is kind of a must. Just like also if you're just flashing your ECU, I used MHD flasher in another video. Anytime I've done anything, I've kept this old antique here around because it's really handy for actually coding your car. And as you can see now, it's settling down. It's even making a bit less noise, and it's going down to 10 amps. So that, you know, that's good. By the time, it's going to take me a couple minutes to set up my laptop and everything, so you know, it's just a fundamental thing to be aware of. If you're going to be coding your car, a good battery charger is really a must, and not necessarily a brand new one, because it may be too sophisticated for its own good and be restricted. Probably your new regulations have stated that the gauge, the gauge of the wiring is funny to even see, but it works, right? And the actual limit to what the charger can put out for its size. Dimensionally, it's similar to my other one, but it actually handles way more power. So just a little tidbit. You know, I don't want to make these videos longer than they have to be, but it's just something that should be covered when you're talking about flashing and coding your car, because I believe one of the biggest ways you can screw up one of these cars is writing to a module when you're low on voltage. It's a great way to brick one of your modules, and then your car is not functional, and then, you know, it scares people away from coding, I bet. Just the horror stories you hear about bricked modules, and then what do you do? But honestly, if you stay on top of the battery voltage, not a lot to worry about. So figured it's relevant, and we'll move on to setting up the laptop now. If you watch any of my other videos, I state what cable I use and what software I'm using and how I've set up my laptop. So you need this cable, K plus D CAN USB interface cable. It says input compatible. You can find it on Amazon and eBay for under 20 bucks. An E90, your actual port is down here, right where I'm pointing. That's where you connect your OBD2 flash cable. So I'm going to get that connected, and then I'll show you what software I'm using. That's how it looks when you get it connected. I like to just actually feed it through open my window and feed it through that way. You'll see it lights up initially when you first connect it, so that you know that you're in good shape. Alright, to start with, I'm going to be covering some basics here because I figured this video could introduce some new people to my channel. Maybe they haven't seen my other videos and it's one of the first things they're going to see of mine. But ultimately, you're going to want to set up a laptop, an old spare laptop that you're not really using as your daily driver. Wipe it clean. I'm going to link to a thread which shows you how to set everything up, all the software that we're going to be using today. You're going to want the laptop to be Windows 7 based at least, or maybe even XP and whatnot will work. Windows 7 32-bit is how I'm set up here. It works for me. And you know, you're going to install IMPA and the whole software suite that comes along with IMPA, and that's going to be linked into the thread, which I'll put in the description of this video. So the first thing you're going to want to do, just to verify you have a good connection to the car, is first thing is we're going to go key on. Turn your headlights off. If they're in the auto position, just turn them off. interior fan off. So that those two things would draw enough power to constantly have your battery charger cycling. As you can hear, it just clicked on and off. So I got the key on, got the cable connected. I'm going to go into input here. And once you have this all set up, and if you follow that thread to a T, you'll be at this point where you'll have input loaded. And you have to start with input. We're not going to be working with input today, but we're coming in here just to verify there's a good connection to the car. Battery on, ignition on, shows you those two dots being black, shows you that it's got a good connection to the car. But we'll be done with that now. What we want to do and what we're going to work with today is NCS Expert. We're actually going to use NCS Expert and NCS Dummy because of the custom coding we're going to be doing to the trace file from the module, which will allow us to actually set the timing needed, the amount of time you need to press the lock button either on your door handle or on your remote. That gets done through the trace file. It's going to be a lot easier to work with NCS Dummy. And I'll cover the basics though, worst case. Like there's a couple ways to go about it, you know, I don't want this video to be super long, but I'll cover either way, both ways to do it. So NCS Expert, we're gonna run this. We're gonna go File, Load a Profile. I always use this, RevTers. If you follow the thread, it will actually set you up with the same exact software and you'll have the same options. As long as you could even use Expert Man. And basically what we want to do now is, first things first, we're going to be working with the NFRM module, and we're going to want to pull the data off of that and read from it. Okay, so we're going to go VIN, F1, F3, choose our chassis. We're working on an E90, and the closest option is E89. That's what you'll have if you actually follow that thread. Now there's three different options here: footwell module, the NFRM, and CAS. Basically, it just needs to pull all the information off of the car as to what's installed on it. They call that the vehicle order. So I can pull it from any one, it makes no difference. I'm going to grab all the information from the car access system. It populates your unique vehicle order. This code basically tells the software what every last option that's on this car. So we're going to click back. And now what we want to do is process ECU. Right now every possible option is there, every possible module on the car. We're not going to be mass writing or mass doing anything. We want to zero in on a particular ECU which we need to work with. Today we'll be working with two ECUs. Technically not ECUs, it's a module, right? But when you click process, this is when you can dive in and grab a particular module. My car is like basically fully loaded. It has every possible option there, so that list is actually quite long on my car. But to start with, what I want to do is read from the NFRM module. Okay, hit OK. That's fine. Now we want to read ECU. Right now the default option, the default job name, so we verified we're only on the actual files that are relevant to the ECU. And it just so happens that the way I've set everything up, I have it set up for both an E70 and an E90 because I have both those cars and they share the same files in a lot of respects, so it doesn't make a difference with whatever shows up there. For me, like the FRM_70 program file, I don't know if it says that because of the E70. Regardless though, if you follow the thread, you'll be set up safe and you can just follow my video to a T. When I click read ECU, SG coderin means code. We don't want to code yet, we just want to grab information off of it. So if we click read, it's going to change that. It's actually going to grab the files off the car and paste them into a directory. And when it's done there, it's going to say SG Leeson, I believe. We'll see when it pops up. So it grabbed my trace file off of the ECU. This trace file is actually the raw data, the raw hexadecimal data off of the actual ECU. And because I've actually done some custom coding already, including setting my voltage to be brighter in my angel eyes, I'll be working with this exclusively. But it doesn't have to be that complicated. I'll show you both ways. So for now, I'll minimize this out. See here, job name changed to Codir Dayton Lesson. Obviously, I don't know to speak German, but I just looked up the translation. Lesson means read in German. So it's basically in read mode right now. It didn't change anything, didn't flash anything. But what it did do is pop files into my directory here. You're going to only be able to install all this software on Drive C. So it's not going to be unique to your laptop. You'll be on Drive C as well. You go over to NCS Expert and you go into the work directory. And what it did was it actually grabbed this file, fsw_psw.trc. That just read off of the actual ECU. And this nettodat.man, sorry, the nettodat.trace file. If you notice, the dates on the actual laptop match this moment because I just grabbed those files off of the car, and I'm going to work with these files now. So there's a couple ways you can code. I've already associated it so that .trc opens in Notepad on my laptop. You may have to do that the first time. Once you do that once, it'll always open up in Notepad for you. But if I double click this is basically the text file that you can manipulate to activate or deactivate features on your BMW. So if you want to actually just turn something on that you know can be easily activated, you're basically just manipulating this file. You'll save it as fsw_psw.trc. Sorry, you're going to save it as fsw_psw.man. MAN for manipulated. The last time I did that was back in October, but that's the last time I tried to do any coding, right? And if I open this up, it's actually going to load up in Notepad as well. But basically, anything you change here, you're going to save the file as .man instead of .trc. And then you can load that into the ECU and you're done. So the reason why I'm going to show it this way is this is just base coding. I can't do this now. If I try to upload, if I just modify a setting on here and try to upload it into the ECU, NCS Expert will just give me an error because it's basically going to tell me that no, you can't just use factory settings here. You have custom coding. You must use the nettodat.trace file, which is this guy here. I already had it open, right? But this is gibberish. Even the other file is not that intuitive, but if you look up online or follow one of these videos, it's going to tell you exactly what to change, and then you just modify that and you're done. So I'll show you as if you were just trying to activate folding mirrors and being done with it. And I'll also show you if you want to take it to the next level, which is adjusting the time you have to press the actual lock button. So now what we need to do is, this is just the base way to do it, your fsw_psw.trace file. We're going to hit Control F. Be careful that you don't even change one digit here. You don't want to break your module. So basically I'm going to search for SPIEGEL underscore comfort KOMFORT. This isn't all of it, but just to be sure, I'm going to search to see how many of these there are. So that's the one we want. Spiegel underscore comfort underscore EINKLAPP. I'll see if there's any other ones that have a similar. That's the only one that's going to start with that. Okay, so as you can see, niche active, not active, meaning I can't, it wouldn't, that's why they don't fold when I actually hold the lock button down. If I were to modify this, careful of your spacing, as you can see it lines up with everything else. I'll just zoom in here really quickly so you can see clearly. Sorry for the shakiness. So we changed that. And it's in line with everything else, so it will not, you know, there's no worries here. All I'd have to do is click, zoom back out, all I'd have to do is click File, Save As. Now that I've made the exact change in the exact format that would work for the car, I go here, change it to .man. If I click Save, I'd be in the right position to actually be ready to upload back to the car, and it will work. That's all you'll have to do if you haven't run any custom coding in the module already. I have, so we're gonna do more. We're gonna use the trace file, we're gonna use NCS dummy, or even I'll just show you how to like go into your text file and change one little character, your hexadecimal data, and accomplish the same thing. But this is how you would do it if you just want the folding mirrors, nothing else. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to save, but I'm working with my trace file, and we're going to be working with the trace file as a must if you want the short press on the actual lock button to actually fold your mirrors. I'm going to do it at instantaneous. To start with though, I'm going to actually start with the 2-second coding. So what I just showed you was to save the fsw_psw.man file. You'd have that waiting there. You would click Basic Functions. Sorry, I didn't have this off the top of my head, but I figured, you know what, I've done it this way before I put any custom coding in my NFRM module. I just did it this way to activate my angel eyes as DRLs instead of my high beams. So I'll just load up this video, just the appropriate section of that video to show you exactly what to do and what to expect. COAPIREADSGGET So right here, COAPIREADSGGET Click OK on this. You hit OK. Should say ended perfect or something like that. Sure. Okay. We're gonna hit OK. I believe you're already done if you do that, but I do this step just to be extra sure. Change job now to be SG coherent. Hit OK. Now once we click execute job, it's actually gonna load that program file, the actual manipulated file that I had set. So click execute job. Take a minute or so. Okay, we're done. So I'm going to put key off, and we'll see where we're at to the iDrive now. So that's it. If your goal is to just have your power folding mirrors lock when you hold the lock button down for 2.5 seconds, or press your lock, the ridges on your handle for your comfort access, you're done. That's all it would take. When you would have turned the key off and turned it back on, it would work. You'd be done. You would have activated power folding mirrors. But a lot of people aren't a fan of that, and they want to be able to just do it just by a quick tap like on most cars. So I just showed you how to modify and work with a trace file, a FSW PSW trace file from your work directory. Simple enough. You just change that one value that I showed you. But what I got to do now, I'm taking it to the next level, which would be, you know, a good introduction to NCS dummy for some people. But I'm going to load up NCS dummy and keep an eye on this here, FRM2 E89 C09. I got to keep that in mind. I'm going to run this. And sometimes NCS dummy crashes for me. It doesn't matter, you're not connected to the car when you're using NCS dummy, so no need to freak out. You're just playing with those files and it makes it user friendly. So I gotta look for this, FRM2_E89.C09, C09. So FRM2, this is C08, I want C09. And hopefully it doesn't crash. And it will actually, there, I grabbed the information from the directory from my trace file. So the file that it saved in that directory automatically searched in the appropriate directory and did everything for me. So what I could do is search for that same term before, the spiegel or whatever. Let me get that pulled up again. So spiegel underscore komfort. It's going to search for it here, and it gives you a nice description of what's going on. Okay, it says comfort closing folding outside mirrors. So if you're kind of clueless as to what you're going to be working with and what you're going to be changing, NCS Dummy, literally as the name implies, makes things a lot easier. So what I can do is I can look at this here and I can find out if I'm enabled or not enabled. Sorry, I misspoke. It didn't automatically load the file for me. It actually just gave you what it would expect to be able to change. I still have to click browse. That was my bad. But I'm already in the work directory and I'm going to go in. I could have loaded up this FSW trace file, played with that, but I have custom coded my NFRM module for a couple features that are not just default choices. Therefore, I'm going to go load my nettodat.trace file. And then it's going to actually, this is where it could crash. But give it some time. It's loading up the file. And then we can search for that same thing. Okay, here. Now it's saying based on your trace file, you have it not active. And if I want to change that, I unclick this and I click this instead. Done. So now I can actually save nettodat trace file. I can save the nettodat file as a manipulated file, the .man. It does it for you automatically, actually. Sorry, I guess I'm being super detailed and anal here, but honestly, anybody that's approaching this for the first time is going to be wanting to triple check everything. So as you can see here, the last time I did that was in September, but .man. So what I'm going to do is actually export a nettodata file as a .man. It does it for you with that change, with all the custom hexadecimal changes I had from back in the day, from before, including anything I've ever done that I don't want to lose. So I'm kind of restricted to doing it this way. As I said, if you wanted to use NCS Dummy to actually just modify the FSW PSW file and do the same concept, you can. I showed you how to change it in Notepad and be done with it. You don't even need NCS Dummy. But if you want NCS Dummy just to make your life a little easier, you could have done exactly the same thing, right? You browse for your FSW PSW trace file, load it up, scroll down to here, change it to active, and then export the fsw.man file, load it in the ECU just the same. You're not going to be dicking around with Notepad at all. But you get an idea. This software is pretty helpful, whether you want to do custom coding or whatnot. So now if I go back to my work directory, I'm going to see that I have a MAN file, nettodata.man file, just made for me. So this is the guy that's going to have all the custom data I've ever made for this module, as well as have the change, the one little change. It's going to be one of these little hexadecimals somewhere that we're going to load into the ECU. So I'll do that now. So you may have heard in the background my battery charger is clicking on and off, but I know that I'm well over 12 volts safe to code. So what I'm going to do here is click basic. I left this open the whole time. It's fine. I didn't disconnect the key, just turn off the car, nothing. So I can just continue on here. It's safe. Even if you just unplug the cable, replugged it in, it automatically resumes. It's not a dangerous practice. I don't have to close this out and go all the way back to this step. But basically what I want to do is click basic functions. Now I want to copy code by nettodat. So I don't want to just read from it and then flash to it. I guess I just kind of taught myself something before where I said that I actually told you to go after copy read get FSW. That doesn't necessarily code to it, but this is all in one thing here. You just click copy code SG by nettodat. Okay. And you have to write that name in, the actual file name here. And if I start typing it in, it should pull up for me. It didn't, but I'll just type it in. So nettodat.man. That's basically telling it, grab this exact file here. Out of the work directory, it knows to look there. So nettodat.man, the one we just made. I'm telling it, go for it. It's going to take a second or so. And we're actually coding to the car at this moment. There, the module reset itself. Basic function perfect ended. I saw my angel eyes flicker. So to be sure I didn't break anything or screw anything up, I can see that you can see it on the reflection of my M3. They're still on and still coded the same way. So what we'll do is key off, key on, and see if they fold now when I lock it. So I'm going to lock it. Quick press, nothing happens. I'm going to long press it. So a couple things, I had to go key on, key off once to reset everything. It didn't just work until I actually cycled the key once. I think I wanted my hood to be closed as well. So basically, I press here, 2.5 seconds. So if I'm just trying to go somewhere, when you unlock it, it automatically unlocks the mirrors. So I'm going to press this. It's funny, it didn't work for my lock button for some reason. Let me try again. Anyway, I'm going to move on because I believe it's something specific to cars that have comfort access. So next thing we're going to do is actually change the timing you need to actually press and hold on the handle. I want to make that instantaneous, and then we'll see if it changes anything on the remote. Okay, so now we're going on to stage 2. I reconnected the cable to the car, got it back on a battery charger, making sure I still have a good connection. I'm going to quit. Now what we're going to do is load up NCS Expert. This is the part where we have to do the custom coding to the trace file to actually change the timing. So I'm going to load profile, RevTers, F1, F3. Going to E90, E89, double click it, grabs the data from the car, we're going to hit back, we're going to process ECU, now we're going to go after the CAS. This is where we change the timing. Hit OK, hit OK. Now again we want to read only. And what happens is no matter what module you're working with, regardless of the module you're working with, it actually will put new files in this directory. So it's 6:55 p.m. If I go here, I got a new file, 6:55. You won't know, it won't name it like NFRM, blah, blah, blah. It will just put a new file there. And it just means that now those files are specific to that module. So you got to be careful. You would want to back up. You know, I didn't show that I have so many backups of all these modules, but I've never worked with the CAS, so I will back these up. The nettodat trace file and the FSW, PSW trace file, they should be put in a safe place, named based on the module they came off of. Like you should save them in documents, backup, and name it CAS. And then you can paste those in there. In case you screw something up, you can load the base unmodified files. So I will do that now. So what I did was just paste those 2 files into a safe directory named CAS so I know where they are in case I need to do anything with them. So what happened there was I actually touched my touched the handle by accident and disconnected from the car, so I better turn my key back on, make sure I'm still connected. I can always verify with IMPA. I'm still good. So I have my trace file now. I want to close NCS dummy. I don't want to empty it. So basically now I'm going to be working a CAS3.C09. So I'll load up NCS dummy. And let's look for that right here. Browse for the trace file, which is right here. It's going to load up the trace file, and I'll tell you what we're going to be changing. Now we're going to search for KMFRT underscore SCHLIESSEN. Alright, so values are as such. So time to hold the remote lock button or door key and door lock to start comfort closing. Okay, I'm going to change it to, so now the base value is 2.5 seconds. Okay, so we want to add custom data, and our data is going to be 00. That's in hex code. Okay, and we're gonna check mark that. So value 0 seconds, right? I could add, for instance, I can modify this and I can make it, let's say you want half a second. I don't know why you would want that, but you can make it 0.5. Okay, 0.5 is 0.5 seconds, or if you want 0A, 1 second, or default is 0F, 1.5 seconds. I think I read that it was going to be 2.5, but it's actually 1.5, but I want 00, and I want that selected. Now, I'm done. I can export this and load it back into NCS Expert as I showed. That's basically it for now. So let's do this. Let's export to that. Let's go to the work directory. See NCS Expert work. Check our nettodat.man file, and it's set to. I just made it, so let's try and load it into the car now. So we're going to go basic functions, coapi code sg by nettodat.data, and I'm already in the right ECU. I'm in the CAS. Verified there, so I'm just going to type in that same name, nettodat.man. We'll just double check that we did it right. nettodat.man. So if I hit OK, it's going to flash that changed file. So I'm going to go key off, key on, and see if we got the job done. So I cycled the key once. I'm going to just try it. I have my key in my hand. Instantaneous. Grab the handle. Of course, unlock. There's actually a half-second delay on that from the factory, it seems, but right away. So like the second I hit it, I start walking away. I don't have to think about that. And I like them to be folded just in case someone's walking beside the car or whatnot. It's just out of the way. So that's how you do it. So we did two things here. We activated that, and we set it up so that there's no delay now. And I showed you guys how to modify your nettodat trace file using NCS dummy. Now, I'm still kind of curious as to why it doesn't work from my remote. It just doesn't work from my remote. It should be an instantaneous thing. Let's say you don't even want to do this level of custom coding, but you don't want to download NCS dummy. I wouldn't recommend you not getting NCS dummy. You might as well. It's easy, free download. Plenty of, if you just search for NCS dummy on Google, you'll find where to download it. And like I said, the thread is going to show you how to set up everything on your laptop right to this point. Like basically, I followed that thread and got this laptop set up as such and was good to go. So, but if you notice here, so my custom value here, my address line is 0030020C, and it was, before it was on 0F. So that trace file that I had open before, so it's saying 0030020C. So if I look here, 003002000, there's going to be no C at the end. But basically, if I scroll over here, 0F, okay, that was my original trace file, right? Just that one data. It's the only one that's going to have 0F in it. If you really wanted to, you could have just modified that to be 00, saved it as a .man and pushed it into the ECU. You don't even need NCS dummy. Will you be able to double check your work? No, but that's one way to do it. If I open up my .man file now, right here, guaranteed if I follow that 0030020, there you go. See, boom, it changed it to 00. Literally, all the software did was change one keystroke. But just proof of concept, that's what's happening on the back end. You're modifying hexadecimal code. Basically, that's what software developers do. And you're putting in a custom data that was kind of always hidden away from the factory, but didn't necessarily get coded onto every car. So I did a quick search and I realized there's one value that, I don't know if it's because I have both comfort access, because I have comfort access, but I'm going to change two values, and I would recommend you guys do the same, because like I demonstrated, locking from the remote isn't active by default. There's one more setting that we got to change. So we got my key on now. Going into info, make sure I got a good connection. So we're good there. Now I'm gonna grab, going back into the NFRM module this time. So we're gonna load a profile. And grab off cast, doesn't matter. Hitting back, selecting NFRM. Want to read. Got my trace file. I'm going to NCS dummy now. Module name is FRM2 E89 CO9. So we're going to type in FRM, choose CO9, browse, and then we'll see that this nettodat trace file is right here, just made. Opening that. Yeah, remember I was saying that it can freeze? That's an example of that. It doesn't matter if that happens to you. Like I said, you're just playing with files. You're not necessarily connected to the car, so nothing to freak out about if that happens to you. But from what I found, you want to let that run through. Once it's happy, then you'll search FRM. Let that run through. Then go browse. Okay. Now we're going to look for one value that's still not changed. We're going to search for ASP underscore KOMFORT. I just did a little researching just to see if potentially I missed something as to why my remote won't fold the doors, fold the mirrors, but my handle does. And you know, I'm happy. I'm done. Like, I don't need to change anything. I don't feel like I need to change anything. But what I did find is, I guess it depends on the FRM module you have. If you're following this tutorial and the value that I have isn't what you were expecting, there's another value that you would actually try. It would be in your actual FSW file, or in, you know, you can open it up in NCS Dummy. But this is the name of it, just so you can see it, so you can search in case you didn't find the first file that I actually changed. EINKLAPP. My card doesn't have it because I got the only value that was relevant and worth changing. But if you don't find the one that I told you to do, which was SPIEGEL underscore comfort underscore EINKLAPP, then you would search for ASP underscore comfort underscore EINKLAPP. Okay? One way or the other, it's going to accomplish the same goal. I think most people are going to find the first value that I had. And yeah, so that's just as a little extra bit of info in case you don't find the value that I tell you about. Look for this value instead. Trying one other thing here, just a last check here. So we're gonna go back to main. We're going to go into the cast module and search one last thing. I want to read this. We're going to load that up in NCS Dummy. Okay, this is one value here. Comfort, SCHLIESSUNG here, right here. That should be active as well to play things safe. I think that's my issue, so I'm going to do that. Comfort closing with remote control. You want that to be active. I'm going to export this. I'm going to go back to basic functions. There. I'm going to see if that made a difference. Okay, so unlock, lock with the handle, unlock, lock with the remote. So that was the one. You want to make sure that when you go into your CAS, you're going to want to change that value. And as I've demonstrated, if you really wanted to, you can go into your FSW file and change that. but I'm doing it through NCS Dummy. If you load up if we go into here, work, NCS Expert work, and we loaded up this, we'll be able to find that. It was Comfort SCH. So if we just type in KOMFORTS, there it is. So you can do it this way too. So just so you know, there's multiple ways to do it. You don't have to use NCS Dummy, but for me, because I didn't do it, it didn't change that value in a cast. It didn't allow for me to unlock and lock with the remote. It only allowed for me to do it through the handle. So this covers making sure you can do it both ways. So that pretty much does it. I think I covered everything I can think of here. Another, I guess it all ties in. Because I changed that last value, I figured I might as well check here. But if I hold the unlock, it'll open up the sunroof and all your windows, right? That any BMW has that from the factory, right? But what I just did is I allowed for it to actually close the windows either by this button or by your handle, and with no delay. So if I just hold this, keep my finger there, it closes everything. Kind of cool. Same story if you do it from the remote. So basically, just a side effect, a bonus of actually coding it in such a way that you can unlock from your remote. To do that, to have that actually fold with the remote and the comfort access, if you have both, you're going to have to activate the feature where you can close all your windows from the remote or from the handle. Just a byproduct of our work today, but kind of cool. 2 birds with 1 stone. Thanks.